Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening again.
Nice to see everybody. Everybody, another week. We're here at Land Between the Lakes with our live studio audience, and I see we've got some viewers coming in. So why don't we? By the way, this is episode 152. We've got Kelly. We have Dr. X and Gary coming in all the way from Michigan. So if we'll get started.
Okay. Mr. Doofus calls Delta Airlines and he says, how long does it take to fly from San Francisco to New York? And the operator says, just a minute. And Mr. Doofus says, thank you, and hangs up. Now, two detectives were investigating a murder of Richard Wan. And they said, well, how was he killed, said one detective. He was killed with a golf gun. What do you mean a golf gun? Never heard of a golf gun. I don't know what it is. Well, he says, I don't know what it is, but it sure made a hole in one. Mo said, my wife got me to believe in religion. I never believed in religion before. Really? He says, how did he do it? Says Joe. Well, I didn't believe in religion until I married her. Because now I believe in hell. Oh, I'm in trouble on that one. A man is recovering from surgery when the surgical nurse appears and asks him how he feels. He said, I'm okay, but I didn't like that four-letter word they used in the operating room. She said, I'm surprised. Usually play soft music. What four-letter word to use? He said, oops. Gary, you want to share the chicken story with us?
Well, yeah. Did you hear about the chicken that disappointed his parents? He was not what he was cracked up to be. Of course, then there was a hen that could only lay eggs in the winter. He was no spring chicken. And that'll do it for tonight.
Thank you. We're going to talk about lying spirits influencing politicians and false prophets. There's an example in the Bible how the king of the northern 10 tribes, God wanted to lead him to his destruction because they altered the religion and he married Jezebel and other evil things. And so they're headed on their way down. Can we pick up that first slide and read
it? Sure, if you just give me a quick minute here. I'm on my different setup here. So we're going to try.
Ken is our technical genius. Now that we're in Land Between the Lakes, it's a little harder.
I'm not at home with all my slides, so we're going to try it this way tonight. We're not going to be able to do it quite the same. So, starting at the beginning.
Oh, yes, that was the first scripture we were going to read, right?
First Kings.
Yeah,
First Kings 22:13. Then the messenger who had gone to call Micaiah spoke to him, saying, now listen to the words of the prophets with one accord. Encourage the king. Please let your word be like the word of one of them, and speak encouragement. 1 Kings 22, verse 23. Therefore look, the Lord has put a lying spirit in the mouth of all these prophets of yours, and the Lord has declared disaster against you.
It was the false prophets wanted the true prophet of God to agree with all the hundreds of false prophets. And he kidded around with a little bit, but he told him the truth. The true God said, God asked the spirit, who's going to deceive the king? And lying spirits were able to influence the prophets to lie to the king, tell him what he wanted to hear. So if you use that example, the spirit world is behind a lot of the lies, even in the political sphere, quite a bit so. And let's see, what's the next slide in that list?
John 8:44. We want to go there now?
Yeah.
All right. All right, John 8:44. You are of your father the devil, and the desires of your father you want to do. He was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaks a lie, he speaks from his own resources, for he is a liar and the father of it.
And I really believe that a lot of what we see in the world today is the devil who's behind a lot of the influences in society, the big influences in society that are influencing us.
Right. I think at the top level, that's where he's working. The ones at the bottom are just kind of useful, I don't know, for lack of a better term, useful idiots that are used, the brown shirts, so to speak, from the days of the Nazi Empire. But yeah, they don't know what they're doing, but they've been sold a bill of goods and they buy it, and they're the ground workers of all this. The people he's influencing, the people that are putting them out into the world.
Yeah, and I think some of the higher ups know that they're lying to people. You all probably know that the communists said this many times. You have to break a few eggs and make an omelet, and you have to lie to the people to get them to buy into what you want.
You know what Al Gore knows? There is no global warming, because he's got his mansion that takes as much power as a small city. You know, he's not driving a Prius. He's probably got a fleet of SUVs. He drives his private jet all over the planet. You know, he knows better.
Oh, by the way, I don't know if he still has it, but this is after he made his famous movie. He bought a house on the coast in California.
I thought the coast was going to be under,
Yeah,
100 foot of water in a couple of
it's
years.
supposed to rise 8 feet in a few years. Well, that would put it up in his living room.
He should have bought it in Arizona. He could have had beachfront in a few years. He'd have been all set.
By the way, they said, I think it was like 2000, that in 2015, Manhattan would be underwater.
Yeah. Oh, who was it? Woody Harrelson or one of them guys? Which one was it? Was it him or was it not Dan? The other one from the Cheers show.
Yeah, I know the one you mean.
Yeah, he went ranting and raving about 15 years ago how we'd all be dead by now, and I don't know. They got to live with this stuff, they say.
It's sort of like, well, I heard him talking about Benghazi and how they said it was video. And apparently they have both emails and other documents showing that they were watching the whole thing live, with a drone. And they knew it wasn't a video because you could tell it was planned,
right.
artillery, all that stuff. And she emailed the Egyptians and said it was planned. But they lied to the public because it made for better politics. Same with the healthcare bill. They knew that you won't be able to keep your doctor most likely, and it would not lower costs or raise it, but you to sell it. And I even think the media knew that they were probably deceiving people, but they think that that's how they have to bring in socialism to America, by tricking us.
I think there's an arrogance involved that they believe that it's okay that they can lie or whatever it takes because the common person is too stupid to really understand. So I have to take care of it. So I need to tell them whatever I need to tell them to get this done because this is the best way for them because I know best. And to me, it's an arrogance that exists at that level.
I've heard interviews with people and that the people that are extremely rich, I mean, the people that we don't even see in our lives, we just hear about them, that are extremely rich get bored. And all this stuff they do is like playing chess for them because they have nothing, and they can do anything they want. So manipulating the economy or whatever is just something to do.
And like in the case of Ahab, the king that was mentioned in 1 Kings 22, when you go through the whole thing, it's clear that God allowed the spirit world, or told them, to deceive the peoples so they would go on a destructive path. I'm assuming that if America continues to move away from God, he will allow the spirit world to influence our media, many of our ministers, I don't say all, because churches do vary, but quite a few. And all those talk show hosts that everybody relies on, you see them on TV in the morning shows and all that. I just sense that he's leading them all astray. God is letting the evil spiritual world and maybe the carnality lead them astray. And we have no idea that truth is falling in the streets.
Oh, it absolutely has.
I mean, when I think about it, that we've left God. It's not that he's left us, we've left him. And I think human nature takes over when you take God out of the picture, because that's what's left. And so human nature is, I want to hear good news. That's why I was reading the scripture here and I started laughing. Kim, that's why I was laughing at. I was like, because this is a perfect example of human nature. The king asked all these prophets who gave him an answer, and he was like, well, do we have any others? And they mentioned Micaiah, and he's all about like him. He always has bad news. And then he shows up and being a little bit of a smart aleck. He's like, oh, yeah, sure, go ahead. God will be with you. You go, oh, no, now tell me the truth. It's all going to go bad. See, I knew you were going to tell me something bad. And so, I mean, he really didn't want to hear the truth. He didn't. I mean, he kind of acted like he did because that's the proper thing to say. Well, I'd like to know the truth. But then when you hear the truth, no, that's not right. I don't want to hear that.
Interesting, out of 400 prophets in the northern 10 tribes, at least based on that description, there's only one that was a prophet of the true God. All the rest were false prophets.
You can take that. You can take God out of the picture, but Satan's always in the picture.
That's true. And without God, I think he can play people like a fiddle.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I don't think he has to try too hard. That's the real
No, it's
part.
easy. It's easy.
I got to get into here.
What, Gary? One thing I was going to mention is that many of the progressives in academia and in government, and some in clerics as well, they have read Saul Alinsky's book, Rules for Radicals. And you know who the book is dedicated in the forward to?
Yeah.
You all know it, of course. Mm-hmm. Lucifer. And when I read it, I was like, wow, this is a major academic book. And the writer dedicated to Lucifer. Kind of shocks me. And I think, wasn't he at the University of Chicago? I know he has some gangster ties too, but he's a well-known, guy, and at least from the Chicago background, of influencing people. At least one major political leader actually taught Saul Alinsky part-time in a college course. So they know Saul Alinsky, there's several high-ranking people. And his book, Rules for Radicals, is dedicated to Lucifer. And he says in there things like deceive people, push, overburden the system, so it breaks down, you can lead them where you want them to go. Don't you wonder if a lot of what's happening to us now is not radicals working on us?
They're trying to replace the truth with their ideology in this country right now. Anything that's true, they attack. Any truth, they attack all truths. Now, all truth today is subject to interpretation. Now, the sexual fluidity, you might be a man today, a woman tomorrow. There is no truth. X and Y chromosomes don't make a man, and the 2X chromosomes don't. That's the truth is out the window. Now it's whatever we say it is or whatever you think it is.
What's amazing to me though, but Can you imagine if Saul Alinsky had his Ford dedicated his book to God? They would have thrown it out.
Yeah.
We'll touch that with,
Yeah, and I find it interesting that he dedicates to Lucifer, which means if you believe in Lucifer, you pretty much have to believe in God,
Right.
because without God, there'd be no Lucifer. So
That
why
means
would they
they
dedicate a
do.
book to
It's
Lucifer?
not like they've gone,
Religion free.
well, yeah, agnostic or atheistic. They've chosen sides.
Yes, that's what I find
Yeah, they've chosen sides.
interesting.
and one of the big lies that Satan said, I mean, his biggest lie, he told Adam and Eve that you shall not surely die. Opposite of what God told them. And you realize almost every religion believes in the immortality of the soul. Almost every religion believes that the moment you die, your spirit is still awake. It flits off and floats off to, well, then some places it floats off to cows and roaches. And I mean, our religions that teach that and all kinds of other things, or to hell, or some, you do bad things to the enemy, you get to go to paradise. But they all believe in immortality, and that is a lie.
Yeah.
And everybody is pretty much following Satan's lie in this world. Deception and misinformation, like we were talking about, and that number that they use doesn't count people that have given up looking for a job. In other words, if you don't go to the unemployment office and keep applying, they don't count you. They didn't used to do it that way.
So the numbers are a lie.
Yeah, you can lie with statistics. Based on the numbers they give you, we're pretty much full employment, and everybody is money, and the middle class is booming. A lot of young people are struggling to get jobs. But when you watch TV, employment is low, and nobody hardly says anything otherwise. Let's go to our next scripture.
All right. Deuteronomy 12:30. Take heed to yourself that you are not ensnared to follow them after they are destroyed from before you, and that you do not inquire after their gods, saying, how do these nations serve their gods? I also will do likewise. You shall not worship the Lord your God in that way, for every abomination to the Lord which he hates, they have done to their gods. For they burn even their sons and daughters in the fire to their gods. Whatever I command you, be careful to observe it. You shall not add to it or take away from it. Let's see, if there arises among you a prophet or a dreamer of dreams, and he gives you a sign or a wonder, and the sign or the wonder comes to pass of that which he spoke to you, saying, let go after other gods which you have not known, and let us serve them. You shall not listen to the words of that prophet or dreamer of dreams, for the Lord your God is testing you to know whether you love. And I must have not copied that last bit there.
Yeah. One of the things I think is interesting, you look at the younger generation, and they're all making a really big to-do about burning. Everybody says, we feel the burn. And I'm thinking, don't they know the failure of communism? And then I realized they've dumbed them down in public schools. They don't know their past. And this is an example of God was telling the Israelites, don't forget the true God and doing the things of the nations around you, because they're going to lead you into lies and stuff. And I really believe that probably people under 50 don't know anything about the horrors of communism and socialism. That's why Bernie seems so attractive. Free college, free daycare, and some other freebies. Right?
which is another lie by not telling them the truth in school. They don't teach them about the horrors of communism. They haven't taught them that probably in 30, 40 years. Because their ideology is aligned with socialism.
Well, I mean, you got to think, kids growing up, what have they always heard? America's the greatest country on earth. You know, all the other nations look to us.
I don't know
So-
if they've heard that.
I don't know, I think they've heard it, and that's part of the thing. If they get in their head that we're such a great country that, you know, Bernie's right. We're such a great country and so well off that why shouldn't our children be able to go to school and college free? Why shouldn't we take care of all these people? Why shouldn't, because we're such a great nation, they take that part, which is good and patriotic, and then they supplant this idea of, well, then that's why, and justifies why they should have all that they should be given. They're entitled to it because we're such a great country.
Interesting. And you would think for instance, they'll say, well, let's do what California and New York are doing. Let's have the minimum wage 15 hours. You realize that actually, if they understood anything about economics, which I presume as they dumb them down, they don't, that's actually bad, especially for new workers and young workers. It's like a discrimination against them. Because you're an employer, you say, oh, if I hire this new person who's never worked before, brand new person, I've got to pay him $15 an hour. Aren't you less likely to hire him? And they don't know that. Nobody's told them that.
Right.
They're totally dumbed down about what the reality of various things.
They cut the bottom rung off the ladder of entry into the workforce.
I learned my lesson. When I was in high school, it was when Jimmy Carter was running for president. And I was campaigning for Jimmy. I'm that old. And I was campaigning for Jimmy Carter. I thought Jimmy Carter, I liked what he was saying, that he should be the president. So I was campaigning in school. I went home one day and told my dad that. He said, you don't understand. I go, what? And so he educated me. And it was a simple education. He said, okay. He said, when they raise taxes, who pays those taxes? I said, the companies do. He goes, no, they don't. I go, what do you mean? He said, if they raise taxes on the company, then the company is still going to make its money. It's going to pass those taxes on to the people who are buying their products. He said, so when they pass a tax, it's not on companies, it's on you. I was like, wow, that's true. So much for the Democrats, I'm a Republican.
That was quick.
It was, I mean, it was so clear. I'm like, of course.
Instant republic.
Well, raising the minimum wage just pushes up the cost of living anyway. It reminds me back in the 70s when the UAW was making all these gains with the big three, and they got these workers up to where they were making $40,000 or $50,000 with their overtime. But the automakers just passed it on to the consumer. They just ran up the price of the car. So who won?
Exactly.
And you could argue in the long run, the workers actually lost. The union priced themselves. I know it's more complicated, the history of the auto industry, but isn't that a big part of it? The union priced them out of business.
That's
We were
right.
just at her uncle's house talking to the city manager. Now, it's a different issue, but the principle is the same. And it was a transportation union and some others that he was dealing with. And they said, we're going to go on strike, and we're going to get the higher wage out of you all. And so he showed them a bunch of documents, studies. He said, well, if you go on strike for like 5 or 6 months, the people in the city will find alternate ways to do things. You're going to lose at least 30% of your ridership. The union leader says, we don't care. We're at the top of the union. We got seniority. It's just the younger guys are going to get laid off. That's what they told them. And they went on strike. They did it. And it worked out just the way the city manager, they got like 30% less, whatever those buses and stuff are, running. But it's the younger guys with less seniority who suffered. The guys at the top union are running it, and the union bosses, they come out looking good. I'm thinking they're pricing themselves out of the market, and they don't even realize it.
Well,
It's not worth $65 an hour to put lug nuts on a car. So now they got a robot that does it.
Yeah.
the union leadership always morphs into politicians anyway. Once they
Yes,
get they get to a certain level, they become politicians.
And they have less concern for the workers on the bottom than people think they do.
Yep.
Those are the ones who suffered the most. And let's face it, most of those auto companies, except for Ford, pretty much became basket cases and lost most of their business to foreign automakers. At least the unions were part of the problem. Do you agree?
Yes.
They lied to the people, and people think, well, we're going to give you something for nothing. You know, isn't that what a con man tells you?
Mm-hmm.
You talk about a spiritual lie. You get, the communists tell the people, we're going to take it from these other folks, and you're getting something for nothing. Somehow it always turns out bad.
Right.
And people don't realize it
Yeah.
because they've been dumbed down.
You don't know how expensive something is till you get it for free.
And like we were saying, we believe that Satan is behind a lot of those lying messages to get people off. It's just that nobody knows it. Even some of the top guys probably don't realize they're being, what you call it, useful idiots. Let's go ahead and read the next one.
All right, we're going to move on to the next slide. All right, 2 Thessalonians 3. But the Lord is faithful, who will establish you and guard you from the evil one. And we have confidence in the Lord concerning you, both that you do and will do the things we command you. Now may the Lord direct your hearts into the love of God and to the patience of Christ. Did I get the right?
2 Thessalonians 3. What's the next slide?
All right, we'll try the next one. Thessalonians 3:9.
Well, let me describe the scripture that I was looking for. I'm not sure what happened. This is the slide, the scripture where Paul tells them that don't worry about the end. The end won't happen until the man of sin moves into the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Of course, he isn't, but that's what he's saying. And then this man of sin will deceive the whole world because they do not love the truth. And they're allowing themselves to be deceived because they do not love the truth. And I want to, if you think of dictators, maybe I guess the worst three in the world would be Stalin, Hitler, and Mao Zedong. But all three of those men used a principle called deification. That is where their propaganda machinery was designed to deify the men, to make them into gods, literally. When they said, Hail Hitler, that's just English to be Hail Hitler, like Hail Caesar, they were actually worshiping Hitler. It became worshiping the fascism, worshiping the state. And they worshiped the man. And you realize that that's really a very evil thing. And that's coming in the future. And it's going to be really big when it gets there. Really big. I believe the next beast that's coming, the King of the North, I assume that he will be even more. Actually, I don't think Hitler was that charismatic. I mean, now think about it. If you're Goebbels, Dr. Goebbels, you're the propaganda minister, your goal is to make Hitler into a god. Adolf, I'm using his natural name, Adolf Schicklgruber, before he changed to Hitler. Adolf Schicklgruber was a very ordinary looking guy. Would you all agree?
Mm-hmm.
He's not particularly handsome, and he's not godlike, is he? I mean, but they made him into a godlike picture with posters and lighting behind him, like he had a halo on him, and all kinds of things they did. I mean, he was I guess a great orator. Not understanding German, it wouldn't appeal to us, but I've heard people who heard him say that he was a great orator. And that sort of thing is coming back. I've got this book on propaganda. I just want to read a few things out of it about the dangers of deification. We obviously believe Satan is involved behind And mostly dangerous cults often do that too. You probably can't get a good look at this picture here, but I'll just bring it out to show it. You may get a little bit of a look at that. That's one of many posters where, with the dove and the light behind him, kind of makes Hitler look saint-like. And by claiming some sort of divine mandate or supernatural wisdom, the political leader can justify almost any action, and nobody can contradict him because, you see,
You
he's
can't.
God. Go ahead, Gary.
They get to a point where they don't believe it's possible for him to be wrong. And that's what they want to project.
Isn't that what they say about,
Infallibility.
yeah,
And that is scary.
yes.
I mean, obviously he ruined Germany. I'm sure they, in retrospect, they said, boy, he screwed things up. But that's the bad thing. And reasoning and logic don't apply when you're trying to argue against something someone who's been deified wants to do. Because he's deified. They have one here of Mao Zedong. I don't know if this one will show as well as the other one did, and you maybe put that. People can at least see it for a brief second.
That's pretty good.
And now that's a younger picture of him, but he's smiling and happy. And according to the write-up, the colors, the pastel colors, his propagandists used were beautiful orange, and they have a bright positive with his youthful look. Of course, he wasn't that young when he did that, but that's what he really looked like. But they put that youthful picture in there to give that special, the Little Red Book of Mao, and they did some terrible things. And I know Satan must have loved some of the stuff that Mao Zedong did. One that's most upsetting, he did one where he had all the young people attack their teachers, and including many cases their parents and elders, because he said they were revisionists, they weren't pure revolutionaries. And he did all that to get rid of a few high-ranking Communist Party members that he thought were challenged his authority a little bit or daring to criticize him, because some of the things he did were causing starvation. One of his lieutenant in charge said, "We just can't be doing this." So in the purge, they got him, but if it hurt millions of people, he didn't care. That's how, and it set China back for a number of years.
What are they inciting our youth to do today? Attack, to go to these rallies. They're hitting people, punching people, throwing eggs at people, and causing as much havoc, and doing a similar thing nowadays.
The danger of being young is, when I was 22, I thought I knew it all. Or maybe even 20 and 18, 19, and I knew a lot more than these kids do today. I thought, but I thought I knew it all. Now, when you got all that youth and energy, you're like a time bomb for wrong leaders to mislead you into doing something bad. And that's the scary part about this current campaign is certain radical groups, from what I've read, both Black, Islamic, and Hispanic groups, have some kind of alliance, whatever exactly the details are, but it's scary. And they got young people who are willing to do the dirty work for them.
I'm sure it won't be popular, especially among younger people, but I think part of the issue is that younger people are easy to incite with emotion. And that's what most of the stuff is based on, is to react emotionally rather than with any kind of logical thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And once you get them fired up emotionally, that's when things become violent. And I heard the other day, they're talking about, well, no, they're just going to be, peaceful rallies. I mean, they're going to be peaceful. And somebody said, well, then why are they bringing eggs with them? That's premeditated. I mean, what they think they were going to have break out with a omelet party or something?
And
why have eggs?
I saw the one in California. The guy some of them had masks on, like you see in the Middle East.
Yeah.
But why would you come to a rally with a mask?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm going to do peaceful things to you all. But it's actually scary.
Notice they only do this in cities that have high levels of gun control. One of these days they're going to do it in a city like Chicago and what was it, somewhere in California. You know, there's a lot of gun control there. They do that in some cities out in the Midwest. That ain't going to go so well, or down south.
Yeah, that's true. We'll just have to see.
And they're probably hoping for that. The people that are putting these same kids out there are probably hoping for that.
Yeah. It's like Hitler had his brown shirts, the stormtroopers, and SA, the different titles, but they did all his fighting in the streets of Germany. They even intimidated the legislature once they got, things going their way. You had to run through a gauntlet of those guys. They were the ones that broke up all the Jewish storefronts. And it's like other politicians would appease them just to call the mobs off. Could that happen in America? We start appeasing the ones with the mobs. And I believe the devil loves that. That's what that Saul Alinsky stuff that was dedicated to Lucifer. I mean, the book was dedicated to Lucifer. I don't want to scare anybody. I'm just saying those are all possible things that could happen with the devil pushing lies and other things of that nature. The Castro story. I might tell you this one. They had some army guys go to elementary schools in the early part of the communist revolution in Cuba. By the way, Castro denied he was a communist until he got to power, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
He was just a socialist reforming. Once he got firmly in power, then he admitted, no, I'm really a communist. They do that, of course. But he would have army units go in elementary schools, tell children, pray to God for candy. No candy. And they say, close your eyes and pray to Castro for candy, because they put candy on their desk. I wonder what God's going to do someday.
Behavior manipulation.
And they love working with little kids that are innocent, don't know what's going on. Okay, let's go on to the next slide.
Daniel 11 is where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
All right. All right, Daniel 11:36. Then the king shall do according to his own will. He shall exalt and magnify himself above every god, shall speak blasphemies against the God of gods, and shall prosper till the wrath has been accomplished. For what has been determined shall be done. He shall regard neither the God of his fathers, nor the desire of women, nor regard any God, for he shall exalt himself above them all. But in their place he shall honor a God of fortresses, and a God which his fathers did not know. He shall honor with gold and silver, with precious stones and pleasant things. Thus he shall act against the strongest fortress with a foreign God, which he shall acknowledge and advance his glory, and he shall cause them to rule over many and divide the land for gain.
By the way, this is what Christ talked about in Matthew 24, when he says, when you shall see the abomination of desolation stand in the holy place. This is what he was quoting, well, this section of Daniel, maybe a few other verses, that this guy is going to desecrate the temple by putting a throne, maybe a statue of himself, and a throne on which he's going to sit and claim he's God. Which means the Jews have to build a third temple before the end comes. And just as far as speculations go, with modern construction, they can probably put a temple up in 7 months.
So, temporarily, they could put one up immediately with tents and what have you.
A modular. Right.
Yeah, there you go. Stack a few motorhomes on each other. We're good.
But I've seen great hotel complexes, at least great from my own small perspective, go up in a few months with these big cranes and stuff that used to take a long time to build. All of a sudden, one day it's an open field. 3 or 4 months later, it's there. You can oh, it's all finished.
They build them. They build them out of giant blocks of, depending on size, but blocks of styrofoam. They cut them, they mold them to, and then they put stucco over them. It's just styrofoam. It looks like these great ornate, I don't know, all these ornate things you see on all these strip malls and stuff. Now it's all styrofoam with stucco over top of it. It's a thin layer. You kick it or something at the bottom, you'll see the styrofoam.
That sounds
Yeah, junk. Yeah, that's how they build them. I've watched them build them. I see them build. They build. Yeah, I see it all the time.
That's why it's so fast.
It's fast because they're just stacking blocks of styrofoam. Oh, they have framework, you know, and all their 2x4s are made out of this tin now. This mold, you know, it's a joke. But they claim that they're building things so much better now, but not so much.
They make it look like chiseled stone.
They do. It looks
does.
wonderful.
It looks
So you
good.
could pop something up in short order with that, you know, building it that way.
That's interesting. I hadn't really thought about
The
the
next
low
time you
quality.
see one that's a little older, look for where somebody's hit it or dented it. You'll see that behind it's all foam styrofoam.
Yeah. And of course, we talk about the last little section we mentioned. How should we avoid deception? Let's all talk about that. Any thoughts, Gary, on what we should do to avoid deception?
Oh man, stay in the program. Stay in the program. Stay in the Bible. Stay in the church, and stay close to those people that you know understand the truth. Well, I can remember even when my mother was back in the worldwide, I can remember the words of Herbert W. saying, "Don't leave the church. Stay in the church." He wasn't talking about an organization. He wasn't talking about this church, this organization, or that organization. He was talking about the Church of God. And wear the armor. I guess I would keep on reviewing that chapter. Wear the armor of God.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Check everything out that you're told. Verify it. And keep, like Carrie said, just stay in the Word of God. Don't vary from it. Don't veer off. Don't let the world pull you back in and get caught up in this mess. But stay in the Word of God and verify everything that's brought to you that has any impact in your life. Especially if you see it on Facebook.
Believe everything you see on Facebook, right?
Believe our Google overlords, right? Everything they tell us.
I think it's very important to stay on
Tweaks.
Yeah,
Tweaks,
that's-
right?
yeah,
Stay away from the twigs, stay to the trunk of the tree, because if you get on twigs, they break out from under.
yeah. Don't chase the squirrel.
And people get one little tiny issue or it's conspiracy theory, and they get, or like a particular, we won't mention a religious leader, but it's a one-trick pony. They want to talk about one doctrine and one doctrine only. And of course, they're wrong, but they spend all their time on that one thing. Anything that's any diet, spiritual diet that's that unbalanced, you know something has to be wrong. It's that unbalanced. We only talk about one thing, and we fight over that, and that's the only thing, and that's an unbalanced diet spiritually. One, we got one thing nobody else has, and that's all we talk about, and that's unbalanced. One thing, when I think about Worldwide Church of God, I didn't leave the Worldwide Church of God. It left me.
Yeah,
I stayed pretty much the same. Yeah, everybody grows, but pretty much the same. The church took a sharp turn to the left, really sharp turn, and they kept on going. And we stayed about the same, and so we had to reorganize with GTA. But the point I'm getting at is we didn't change. You don't have to change. You can stay.
We have an elderly lady in our group, Helen Warner. She goes back a long ways, over 50 years, maybe 55 years, and every once in a while she'll say something that just catches me, and I can remember one particular conversation. We were talking about some of these different organizations, and she said Well, I am today right where I was 56 years ago when I started out with the Worldwide Church of God. Look at all the organizations that fell away, but she's right. She's still right there where she needs to be. That's what we have to do, and that's what we have to teach our people to do, and teach them to teach their kids to do.
Let me go to our next slide.
All right. All right, we're going to Titus. All right, 114. Says, not giving heed to Jewish fables and commandments of men who turn from the truth. To the pure, all things are pure. But to those who are defiled and unbelieving, nothing is pure. But even their mind and conscience are defiled. They profess to know God, but in works they deny him, being abominable, disobedient, and disqualified for every good work.
Don't you think there's some people who think it's all right to lie?
They don't know their truth. Whatever they believe is the truth. Everything else is a lie. Truth doesn't matter. It's what they believe is the truth.
They can
We'll tell
change
you
that.
what the truth is.
Yeah.
And they tell us all the time what their truth is.
Well, it's like the Muslims. They think it's all right if it's for the greater good, but what they think is the greater good isn't necessarily true. And a lot of people adopt that mindset. You know, it's okay to lie a little bit if the result is for the greater good, but it's not.
And nothing is pure. They would lie about anything if they thought it would advance whatever they want.
And they do it every day.
And they have no bad conscience about it. Like, oh, well, I feel bad about that.
And their disciples tell us all about it on the news every night.
But once they accept that notion that they're lying for the greater good, I think they go on to a point where the greater good expands in their mind. You know, they start covering all kinds of different things, justifying it because they say it's the greater good. Everything becomes the greater good.
It's like Ronald Reagan was quoted as saying, it's not that my liberal friends are ignorant, it's just they know so much that's not true. And there's a lot, they know a whole lot of stuff that's just not true.
Man, kind of things. I remember there was recently a commercial that I seen for it's the doorbell has the camera on it. So if you're not home, somebody pushes it, yeah. And it shows these neighbors coming up and they're looking at this person's house who's not home. And you can hear them talking about trying to break in. And the guy saying to the girl, well, we're just going to steal some small stuff, so stuff that won't hurt her. In their mind, they weren't doing anything wrong. They weren't hurting the person they were going to rob because
She didn't need it.
right, it's just a few small things. So people can justify anything.
That's so true.
This is all part of the deception that we're talking about.
Can you read the next
Sure,
verse?
sure. Pull it up here. All right. But evil men and impostors will grow worse and worse, deceiving and being deceived. Boy, howdy.
Yeah, they deceive and they're being deceived themselves.
Yes.
They don't know it or care. You know, and all kinds of people on TV that feel good preachers that it's all about one thing, just feeling good. And that's really a spiritually unbalanced diet too. You look at the whole Bible, the Bible's only about your feeling good. You know, there's so many other things in the Bible, like, you're kidding me. Yes, just feel good. I got a great smile and pour the money. Anybody, we're in front of a live audience. Honored to be so. Anybody in the audience want to make a comment, ask a question?
Certainly, the interest on pure prophecy, because I guess I'm listening to 21 have to watch as the, as Peter said, be vigilant. You know, certainly I heard that you don't make the time, but follow the word closely. You can get pretty close.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, in case you couldn't hear it that clearly, he was saying that Luke 21, we're told to watch world events, though we don't know any date. Paul said in 1 Thessalonians 5, we shouldn't be asleep like the rest of the world. We should see it coming closer and closer. And I think we do see it coming. I guess it's hard to tell the future. Timing is hard to tell how fast events are going to go, how slow they're going to go. We're listening this morning to Nancy, who gives a lot of economic news about the economy of the world. And most things, they're not all bad, but there's still a lot of bad things out there. All kind of debt in Europe. China's economy is slowing. The manufacturing of major machinery, which you need to manufacture other things, and Europe is slowing, which means factory orders are going down. So the economies of the world are slowing down. And some sort of crisis is coming. The question is just when.
Right.
What will be the trigger? And I think they're saying European stock markets really going down. They're telling people to buy bonds and not stocks. The stocks are based on companies' shares and how profitable they are. Apparently, they're not that profitable. Where bonds are based on more solid things like buildings, land. And by the way, I'm not saying that stocks couldn't go bad either. You know, buildings and land could have, but at least they're solid.
Right.
They're solid. Where a company can be here today and gone tomorrow.
Right.
And that's been the trend. So there is something negative in the world's finances. And then now this is strange. So the people in Europe are now watching America, because America's always been the one that kind of held the global world trade together. And they're looking to America to hold things together. And I'm thinking,
No, that ain't happening.
they're worried
Not
about
this
what's
time.
happening
I'm
over
afraid
here.
this time it's not going to turn out so good. I think it's a lot. Well, to his point was the Bible says we don't set dates. Also says that we should recognize the time. You know, like a farmer don't know what date he's going to go in and pull his wheat, but he knows by watching the weather and he knows the seasons. He knows about when he can be able to get in there and maybe get it due to the rain and how things are going. We should know the atmosphere, I guess, of the times we're in. But also it says that we shouldn't. After you do that so long, you start to wear people out. Well, here's another year they said the stock market's going to last. Here's another year they said Christ might return. Well, it also says when you start thinking that way, that's when he's showing up. So don't stop paying attention to the world around you.
By the way, it is possible, like the three big events, I think the big ones, England voting whether to get out of the European trade zone, the Federal Reserve raising interest rates, which should come in July, or maybe they may wait till November after election, and the American election. Depending on how those three events go and what kind of government we end up with next January could determine the speed of the global economy's decline, or maybe could bounce back. I mean, it's theoretically possible America could get a more pro-business government, start spending a little, I mean, they'll never totally straighten out, a little more responsibly, and the world will follow us and the economies will do a little better. I mean, that's a possibility, right? Then the other possibility is all three of those things could go in some negative way, and we get a really bad news government that's going to continue the bad economic policies, and they may even be worse. Or if you continue bad things long enough, the results become worse. You can only slide so long on previous good things. So I used to think when Glenn Beck said America's going to have a spiritual revival, it's going to happen. And I pray for that. But don't you all agree that that's probably not going to happen?
Most likely.
I don't think so.
Not.
And we base it on feeling assumption. Like, I can feel it. I can, when the good Lord touches me, I can feel it. Yeah. Basically, I guess it has to be going on feeling assumption.
So the question he asked was, can we feel it? Are we going on assumptions? I'll ask everybody to give their own opinion, but I don't have any. It's like you take in all the facts you're getting, and your mind kind of makes an assumption based, but it's not really an assumption. It's based on all the information you're getting. We're watching all the news, financial news, and the spiritual news as best we can get it by watching TV. By the way, do you know 70% of a certain political party said they didn't care if their nominee was indicted? They voted for the person anyway. That tells me that they don't mind if someone is a lawbreaker who's in charge. Doesn't that tell you about the spiritual condition of a big chunk of America? I was making a general statement. So my statement would be, I'm taking all those facts in, so you have a feeling, but I'm really not sure yet. It could go either way. What do you think, Kelly?
Well, Ken and I were actually talking about it earlier. I kind of look at it like one of those elaborate domino setups that you see all the dominoes being put in place, and once they start going, they can go really fast, or they can start and there's something changes and it stops the change.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how I look at it. It just depends on how the things are being set up, how they start falling. So they can go really fast, or it could get started and stop.
Right. Well, I look at it this way. They've gone through all this trouble in the people that are kind of pulling the strings have done all this trouble for, I don't know, 15, 20 years, maybe longer, of setting the system up the way it is today. And they're not going to let someone come in and upset that whole thing that they've set in place. I just don't see that happening. I don't see them allow someone to come in and right everything that they have done, even if whether that would be his objective or not. But I just don't see all the work they put in, all the lying, stealing, trouble, cheating, whatever they got to do. Am I going too far?
Yeah, I think you're out of country, son.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't put a pickup truck or a dog in there, so I'm good. So I just don't see them letting all that work and effort be overturned by one election. I just don't see that. I don't think we have any hanging chads going this time. You know what I mean? I think they're going to they want the status quo to continue to be the status quo. And I just see that is where we're headed. They've been working on our children for decades. They've been working on our population through the media for decades. I don't think they're all of a sudden everything's going to flip over. I don't see what's going to flip that over. I don't see this country getting on its knees and repenting. They're sticking it more and more in the face of Christians every day with what they want to do. I don't see them changing that. I don't see that all of a sudden they wake up one day and say, hey, never mind, we're sorry. I don't see it.
I don't think they're going to roll over either, because I think that over a course of time, they have come to be convinced in their minds that they are the righteous side.
Exactly. You're exactly right, Gary.
Yeah, evil is good and good is evil, as Isaiah said.
Exactly.
We are evil in their eyes.
Yes.
And you know what? I was reading Fox. I shouldn't bring this up. I started reading Fox's Book of Martyrs, and there's a pattern in there, like with the first 12, with the first apostles. And then it'll go so long, and everything will be good. Then all of a sudden, they'll attack Christianity again, and there'll be another group of God's people get martyred. And it'll go fine for a while. There was all these patterns throughout history, through Egypt, or not Egypt, but through Rome, and then in different empires after that, where they'd be good, and they would be good to get along with the rulers of that country for decades or maybe a few hundred years, and then all of a sudden it flips again, and they want to attack all of the Christians. And there's patterns, and we're starting to see, I don't know, maybe the beginning of something like that happening again. As much as I don't want to see it, but it's out. Everything they're doing is gearing towards they do it towards the Jews and the Christians.
Yeah, at least the religious Jews.
Yes, the religious.
Uh,
The non-religious Jews are the ones driving half of
Yeah,
it. The other one.
they're in all that stuff. But it's interesting. Yeah, it's like there's a new TV show I was reading about, a new show coming. I won't mention the producer, it's a very famous lady, but I'll mention her name. But the villain of the show is a corrupt church. And they're the villain, and I guess the hero is fighting a corrupt church. Now, I mean, you can think of all kinds of
What
action.
bathroom does he use?
I mean, can you think? I mean, think about it. Of all the villains you could use, because that's when you're writing. That has a lot to do with the propaganda value of the show. Who do you pick as villains? A corrupt church. I can think of nothing more evil than a corrupt church. But they may do it in such a way you'll end up hating Christianity.
Oh, yeah.
And I know this producer I know does not believe in Christianity, believe in some Eastern mystic, whatever it is, something that there are many ways to God. I don't know. Oh, in other words, the show is designed as a propaganda vehicle against Christianity. I don't think that would have happened 40 years ago.
No, I don't believe so.
And I imagine a lot of people will watch it. A lot of young people with, as one guy says, skulls full of mush, and they'll eat that sort of thing up.
Well, 40 years ago, we wouldn't have had a weekly program named Lucifer.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true. Did they ever cancel that show? I hope they canceled, because I know me complaining about that show.
Probably won an award or two.
Yeah. Up for an Emmy.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, yeah. Things are definitely changing in the world. And, all I can say, the next year is going to be a very interesting year.
The next 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's going to happen in the next 6-7 months? How will things fall out? Right now, they think Britain will stay in the common market. But they say the tide is turning, but you never can predict. And or some people think even if they leave, it won't make any difference for a while. And then who knows what the Federal Reserve's actions will be? Probably they won't do anything till after the election, because they don't want to do anything that might hurt the party in power.
Few terrorist attacks could take place in England before that, changing their mind.
It's true.
They could demand more of a right
So
wing.
we wait and watch and stay prepared.
There's also another possibility. The EU had to give England some better terms. I don't even know the details, but I read about it. Then I heard France and Germany, the other big countries, are complaining, well, how come England gets a better deal just so they won't vote out? And the politicians of England saying, we're getting a better deal, so we should stay in. That could make the other major members say, we want a better deal, but everybody can't get a better deal. You know what I mean? The thing won't work if everybody demands a better deal. So we'll have to see how that all plays out.
Yep.
Okay, guys, we got a long weekend coming up.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. And we hope anybody that can make it down here and between the lakes for Pentecost, we'd be happy to see you. And we know quite a few of the people who do watch are here with us tonight, so we appreciate that. We're glad to see that. So, are we about there? All right. We're going to try and switch to the ending without my normal equipment. And it didn't work.
Might require a small miracle.
Hey, where's the love, Gary? Where's the love, Gary? All right, we're good to go. So again, we thank all you for watching. We hope you all have a wonderful Pentecost, and we hope to see you again here next week. And with that, we will say good night.
We're happy you could make it.
You all know I normally do when I'm sitting up there.
I
I wish I didn't.
Until next time, may God be with you in everything you try. But for now, till next week, we have to say goodbye.